Hey, you're watching Couchside. We got an episode right now talking about some of the new state abortion laws that passed recently. Particularly going to focus on two, the revisions that have been made in Alabama and also in Georgia. Now, in Alabama, what they basically did was they passed a law that outlawed abortion, and they made no exceptions for rape or incest. Really, I believe no exceptions whatsoever outside of maybe the life of the mother, but
even then.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And the other one was for Georgia that recently passed what they call a fetal heartbeat law. And this is basically like once the fetus at 6 weeks, as early as 6 weeks, has a heartbeat detected, it's no longer you can have the abortion, and they made it so now that the law enforcement go after the doctors and the mother that's carrying the child or the fetus and aborts it. They can do life in prison or the death penalty. So some pretty radical changes to these state abortion laws. And the first question that pops into my head is like, wasn't there something called Roe v. Wade? I mean, why are the states now just like doing their own thing on this?
Yeah, and it's very, very confusing to me because if Roe v. Wade was a federal mandate, where it said abortion is legal, I don't understand why the states are doing their own thing. But Again, this is a video for another time. States have their own laws on medical and recreational marijuana. So essentially, it seems like states are now doing just what they want and forgetting the Supreme Court. And of course, these laws, some of these will probably be challenged by federal courts and probably eventually by the Supreme Court. And who really knows, especially the way the political nature of the Supreme Court now is, if, for example, those rulings will stay.
And the thing about this is you've got, even on the conservative side, you got some people coming out saying this goes too far, and not necessarily off the moral grounds, but some of them off of the grounds that like, hey, this isn't a case we can make to the Supreme Court and expect to win. I mean, you had Pat Robertson coming out and saying that. Not that anyone listens to Pat Robertson that's below the age of 80, but, he's come out and said something. Ben Shapiro, some of these other conservative thought leaders. And bottom line is it's a mixed bag between them. Some of them are against, some of them are for what's happened. And obviously most of the country is on the same page that this is just too extreme.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm totally against this. I mean, I read an article today. There was a state senator, I believe, from Texas, where they're trying to pass similar laws and make abortion equal to manslaughter. And in Texas, manslaughter is punishable by the death penalty. So he was saying, and I'm paraphrasing here because, of course, I read this article like 6-7 hours ago. He was saying along the lines of like, alluding to a lot of, if not most, are just saying it makes them more promiscuous because, I can just get an abortion to lose it and this, that, and the other. And what really pissed me off about it was not every woman has the same situation. Some are raped. Some are in cases raped that is by incest. Some are the life of the mother. There are so many different situations that it pisses me off that these old ass dudes that literally should not have any say in what happens to a woman's body are making these laws. And some of these punishments are horrible. You say you're pro-life, yet you're threatening to kill or cause the death penalty to doctors and mothers who make this decision, this impossible decision. It's a fucking joke, dude.
It is. It is a joke. And, I just think that you're really going too far in the sense that you're threatening life in prison or death penalty for doctors and mothers here. And it's like, okay, that's going a bit too far. And by a bit, I mean a lot.
Yeah.
So, we could have a very long conversation about some of the hypocrisy that goes on with all this too. How, it's okay to give the death penalty to someone, but you're still pro-life. It's okay to send them to war and get killed, but you're still pro-life because you're going to protect a fetus.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot of things we can get into with this, but the bottom line is these are states that are going against the laws on the books, trying to, make their case to the Supreme Court, it seems like.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. But what's weird to me, and we both have talked about this. I'm a firm believer in different separation of church and state, and a lot of these states that are making these laws are definitely in the Bible Belt, heavy evangelical states, red states in actually all these cases that are making these laws. And it's one of my things. Somebody said, "Well, it's a sin. It's that and the other." And I was like, okay, that's fine, but if every man if in most Christian denominations believe this, that when you die, every man is judged by his or her, sins here in this life. Why are you punishing when, you believe that God is going to punish them anyways? I don't understand this. Let people have their own agency. Yes, I don't agree with people just doing it to do it, but that's none of my business, honestly. That's none of our business to make a decision for someone else like this.
Yeah, another thing I want to add that's a bit odd also about the Georgia law that got passed is that they're essentially come to the conclusion now that once a heartbeat has been established and a fetus is now a person and perhaps even a citizen of the state of Georgia. But once you make that proclamation, it's been pointed out, what happens to all the pregnant women that are in prison?
Yeah.
If technically what they have inside them is a person, doesn't that person have the right to due process and not be in prison because of what their mom did? It's there's so many avenues they're exploring with this now, and it brings up a lot of interesting questions about it.
Yeah, like I said, this is one of those murky subjects that obviously this is just the beginning of probably a very, very long process. And of course you have states, I remember I was talking to Mario actually, and he was talking about apparently Maryland's, this law is being tempted in Maryland. Of course, Maryland being the blue state is, I don't think there's even a chance of it getting passed here. But that's not to say there are other conservative states that may pass this law. And it is going to be very tricky. This is a very hotbed subject. One that I think probably will be a big point of conversation in the 2020 elections, honestly.
Yeah, and just looking at this, where this could go, if these laws actually do make it to the Supreme Court challenge, you got to think about it this way. Trump, he's already proved two bona fide conservative justices of that court, and who knows what can happen?
Yeah.
Who knows what can happen? And I think that's one of the reasons you start to see this kind of boldness coming out of these conservative states now do things like this.
It's like they've been plotting. It's like we've been just holding on to this. Let's go. And this is, I think at the current moment it is a majority conservative Supreme Court panel right now. So that does make things interesting. And again, it's interesting. So if Roe v. Wade does get overturned, what about liberal states that that are pro-choice? Are they going to be able to make state laws then that protect women's rights?
Well, if it ever comes to that, what I'm hoping at least happens is that, let's say they say, all right, every state can just decide what they want to do, right?
Yeah.
It's okay, that I still don't agree with that on this, but it's if they did that, I would hope that at least you don't have states that are, red states punishing women for leaving that state to get an abortion in a state where it's legal. Because I think you could even see some of that. I think there's actually been some bills that have come up that and they haven't made it to law yet, but have suggested that's another avenue they might go down.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely creates... It's so scary, too, because, again, you don't know a lot of cases, these women's situations. There could be a mother's health, in danger, and then she has to worry about traveling 2 states over to get this situation taken care of. It's just a mess, dude.
And the protests have already started. There was one today I saw that was going on in D.C., Planned Parenthood and a bunch of protesters organizing to fight back at this, and as well they should.
Yeah. We've known that since, the 2016 elections, Planned Parenthood has been a huge target of, the right, definitely more so than, other years. It's always been a target, but definitely, the fact that Trump is president, I think that helped push for it. And they've been trying to defund it, and now we have states doing this. There's no telling what's going to happen.
Yeah, so this is a development that I'm sure is going to, we may keep reporting on it actually, because it seems like more and more states are coming out and doing things about this. So we'll just have to see what happens. Right now on the books, I would say Alabama and Georgia probably the most extreme out of what we've seen, but there's some other states that are making some changes. So, you know, stay tuned as we continue to report on that. We expect to get a lot of troll comments on this video, but you know, we're prepared for it, and we will talk to you. So leave a comment if you're inclined, like the video, and we'll see you later.
Take care.